The topic that I'm studying involves creating a timeline of social activism for the colonias that Dr. Hector P. Garcia helped so much.
I'm here today to have and look into first-hand information, evidence, of the terrible situation in which my people find themselves.
And what that is everything that happened beforehand, so looking at the special archives and seeing how many news articles were being released involving colonias and his name and activism towards that, and then between his passing and present. So right now we're seeing many more projects being funded by the NSF and EPA, and who those projects are being run by and how they're helping. So the different outcomes that we're seeing is Dr. Hector P. Garcia helped with much policy, but the ones that we're having now involve much more science, groundwater contamination, results that would go further into agriculture and industry and how they're affecting the communities there.
And I just sort of realized what a compelling story the farm workers movement was, particularly the 1960s, but especially the 70s and the early 80s. Really appealed to me. And there were kind of two turning points. One was when I started doing a research project on Othel Brand, who is a powerful grower in Hidalgo County, and also the mayor of McAllen. And he ran kind of a police state, if you will, in McAllen, where the police officers were abusing and beating up farm workers and so forth. And so I did a study on that, and that was kind of my entree into studying farm workers more broadly. And then I discovered, as I investigated further, that farm workers didn't have access to toilets until the mid-1980s, or early to mid-1980s. And for whatever reason, that just kind of hooked me. It just seemed like such a deprivation of a basic and fundamental human right. That any modern society, you would have toilets for your workers. So those are really the two things that I guess brought me into it. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, I've really just expanded my research. So I'm still working on African American history subjects, but I've expanded. I'm working on a book on farm workers in South Texas in the 70s and 80s.
As an undergraduate at university, I always questioned the role of Mexican American contributions, but also the role of women and how they influence society, and often wondering how women's experiences would shape the way my professor would teach certain lectures, especially in courses that I was really attracted to, such as U.S. political histories and activism. Many of these questions that I had as an undergraduate student led me to research and learn more about not just about women's history, but especially Mexican American women's history and the Mexican American experience in the U.S. And I came to learn that just like our current day-to-day, the historical literature completely overlooks how Latinos, Mexican Americans, and women contributed to social political organizing, electoral politics, and how they became politicians themselves and leaders within their own communities. The Mexican American community is a dynamic group of people who have the power to transform American society. And so with this knowledge now that I've gained with training and learning, and as I continue to learn, right, I make it a mission to make sure to center the Mexican American Latino experience when we're talking about contributions and who shaped the U.S. today.
Dr. Hector P. Garcia paved the way for a lot of policy and social movement in that way, and it did slow down a little bit, but now a lot of more science research is happening with that. So I work with groundwater contamination, but in the next year or two, there are going to be 8 more projects starting for the colonias through the EPA, and those projects will involve many green, eco-friendly solutions towards the water pollution issues that are happening in Nueces County.
And I think on a broader level, it's still very relevant to our society because the same things he was fighting against at that time are still very much with us today. Anti-Mexican, anti-Mexican American rhetoric is very much at the heart of a lot of politics these days, and particularly anti-immigrant sentiment is at the root of whipping up a lot of fear and hatred in our society today.
I mean, I write about specifically how U.S. women of Mexican descent in Texas navigated a politically divided nation in the late 20th century, and this is really emblematic of even today's current political climate. I argue that we need to look back to these histories of the Mexican American people, especially our people. I identify as Mexican American, Latina, and look to these histories as inspiration, but also as tools and strategies of how to navigate our current political system, current political climate, human condition. In my research, I really center how women fought for community women's rights and encouraged more Mexican American women to get involved in electoral politics, to get involved in activism for their community. I think it's highly important because the work he did to advance Mexican American civil rights was foundational for advancing Mexican Americans in this country. Dr. Hector P. Garcia and his sister, Dr. Cleo Garcia as well, and his whole family should be seen as role models that many can look up to and learn from. Their histories help foster resilience and opportunity among the Mexican American Latino community, and I think we should continue to argue that Dr. Hector P. Garcia is an important figure in the fight for Latino civil rights. And these histories of Latino civil rights is history of American history. And we need to make sure that when we're talking about activism, social organizing, civil rights, his history and his family's history are part of that discussion. That's the only way we can continue to shape narratives around the Mexican American community and Latino community and dispel any myths or stereotypes that it's happening in our current political climate.
At this time, I think the community engagement has kind of declined in a lot of ways over the last couple of decades for reasons of technology and other things. And so he was just so forceful and fearless and determined over such a long period of time. And so whether you agree with all of his positions or not, I think you just have to sort of respect the amount of energy he had. It's hard to know when he slept. You know, honestly, when did this man sleep? So I think his legacy is important that way. Obviously, his collection here is phenomenal. I mean, he seems like he kept just about everything that he ever received in terms of paperwork. And so, you know, that's a minor part of his overall civil rights legacy. But just the collection in this building is just phenomenal. And you could write many books drawn from that material.
I just want to say thank you so much to the Dr. Hector P. Garcia Foundation for supporting my research and my book, and I am so incredibly thankful, and I can only hope to continue to give back to the Mexican American Latino community through my teaching and research, and to continue to inspire how important it is to keep Dr. Hector P. Garcia's legacy alive.
I'm tremendously grateful for the financial support of the foundation and of the Hector P. Garcia Fellowship that I won and that brought me here today.
I appreciate everything the foundation has done. I graduated from A&M Corpus Christi in 2023 with my bachelor's in environmental science. It's people like Dr. Hector P. Garcia who have paved the way for me to go into a career that involves social science and environmental science, and to be able to bring that back and work for the people. So I appreciate keeping his legacy alive because that has led me to the career that I'm going towards.